Hey everybody, this is Tim Anderson, program coordinator for the Florida Film Festival, and I'm super excited to welcome you to the Midnight Shorts program. Hopefully you guys just finished watching these movies. If you're watching the Q&A before you watch the movies, you're doing it wrong. So stop, go back, start the movies over, make sure to vote for your favorite movie for Best Midnight Short. And I want to welcome some of the incredibly talented filmmakers joining us from literally all over the world for this Q&A. So welcome everybody. And let me get everybody to kind of introduce themselves. So I'd love to start with David.
Hey, I'm David Mikalson. I'm the writer and co-director of Stuck.
Awesome. So just this is like the ultimate Me Too kind of short that's a comedy. Like we really say so many like kind of movies that deal with this kind of assault trauma, a lot of, very important things that are going on in the world, but like you made a comedy out of it, and it's a feel-good revenge movie.
yeah, we're kind of going for a kind of crowd pleaser, fist pumper kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's got some great crunching noises in it. Well, let me have, I guess, Max and Carl. You want to go in succession? Max, introduce yourself first, then Carl.
Sure, I'm Maxwell Nalevansky. Don't know why I'm waving, but I now did it 3 times.
You can go throw up devil horns.
Yeah, great. And I'm the writer of With Pleasure, and I co-directed it with sweet Carl over there. Carl?
Yes, and I'm Carl, co-director of With Pleasure.
All right, Stephen, welcome. Welcome
Hello.
back. Stephen was here last year, first time.
That's yeah. I was a volunteer at the Florida Film Festival back in the day, so it was fun to come back. But I'm Stephen Shea. I'm the writer, director, animator of Sharkbaby.
You're like the only person who worked on Sharkbaby, more or less.
Just me and a composer and 2 actors. Yeah, pretty much.
We're gonna get into that in a minute. I'm super excited. Aaron Augenblock, welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. We were talking earlier, and I just Florida Film Festival is one of my favorite festivals in the world. It's where they played some of my early films, and just throughout the years, I've always been excited to share the films that I've done or some of my artists are working on. And this year, I'm excited to present a film that's very close to my heart. It's called Death Hacks. And it is a short animated cartoon about life hacks for dead people. So it's essentially 2 life hacks influencers, or what we call influencers, and they host a show from the great beyond where they tell other newly deceased people all the tips and tricks to turn up the afterlife. So it's sort of a mix of some of my favorite things, which is horror and comedy and obviously cartoons. And then also just pop culture parody, which I love to do. So it's long for this festival. So I appreciate you guys putting in it, because essentially I created 10 little mini shorts, these little 3-minute shorts that I compiled, I adapted into this like 30-minute mega cut, which is what I've been shopping around and showing in festivals now. So I appreciate you guys putting it in there, because longer form animation and 30 minutes is long form for animation is pretty rare. So I hope everybody has a blast watching it.
Absolutely. Sophie and Dan, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Hey.
Thanks for having us. We're well chuffed to be screening at Florida.
Indeed, yes. Yeah. And just to,
This is Sophie.
I'm Sophie, and this is
Dan.
and our film is The Thing That Ate the Birds.
Yeah. And we'll get into this a little more, but ironically enough, the Florida Film Festival's Midnight Shorts program has always hewn to more extreme than it has hewn to necessarily suspense and horror. And you all represent essentially the only actual horror movie that's playing inside of the Florida Film Festival's Midnight Shorts program, where usually when you go to a Midnight Shorts program, it's nothing but horror movies. But we sort of like aim towards the batshit crazy.
Nice.
Well, we carry that badge of honor.
We do, indeed. Thank you very much.
And Claire made what is arguably the greatest quarantine short I watched all year long.
I think it was good to go into batshit crazy right to me. I did a fairly clumsy stopped clay animation in my insanity during the quarantine about a Willie, Adventures of a very sad Willie.
Yeah. It's yeah, we're gonna talk. I will say that my programmers probably on average watched it 6 times each. Like,
I'm hearing it's a little addictive, but you know,
it was,
much like his problem in the film.
actually, so we'll keep with you, and then we'll go around and kind of ask everybody a little bit of a question about it. But I don't even know I don't want to know what inspired it, like actually. But what I kind of want to just know, it's funny is we saw a couple of really funny shorts that were kind of like about sexual frustration in lockdown, including another short that Leah Shore, who's playing in this program with Don't Touch Your Face, had made, which she premiered at South by just a couple of weeks ago, about a woman who just keeps calling like the pizza delivery man and is like throwing herself at him. But yeah, I just it is kind of in a very sweet way, a kind of rudimentary claymation style. So I guess I want to know, is that your normal medium, or did you feel like this was something to do?
No, I usually work with people, but I did another animation about probably almost a decade ago now, but was with toys. So this is the first time I've done a sort of a rudimentary animation with clay, and I found out it's hard. But thankfully, I had a very solid form to work with. I love clay animation. It's been sort of I think it's such a beautiful tool. So I never wanted to pretend that I was good at it, you know, so it was like definitely meant to feel clumsy and meant to feel a bit sort of taped together, and I think I definitely succeeded at that.
Yeah, I think that's what works about it. Other than obviously it's being very funny, I think that the super DIY aesthetic of it is really kind of the huge selling point on the short. Like for us, like we just kind of fell in love with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I love for me, I really enjoy the sound effects of it as well, being really clunky, like the balls moving, and it's like yeah, I mean, it's a real simple idea. It's just I'm a great lover of David Attenborough. And I wanted like the voice of it to be sort of this lost sort of explorer in a forest somewhere, and then it just sort of adapted that.
I like the idea, like a very cathartic, very matter-of-fact David Attenborough narrating the story of an abused penis.
Exactly. That's it. But I mean, really, it came from boredom and being stuck alone and horniness, and the three things connected to make a 1-minute film.
It's absolutely great. Well, let me jump over to Aaron, and then we'll keep our animators all together in a little block. So Aaron, you touched on this already, but this is one of those like almost throw it against the wall and see if it sticks amount of information that is being thrown at the audience, like and it's a riot. And of course, and I would definitely want to talk a little bit about the inspiration behind it, but I also want to talk about, you know, getting Thomas and Kristen to do the voices for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's an intense watch. I'm very curious how it'll actually screen in real life. I'm curious if people's ears will start bleeding, but and eyes, but because it was actually made to watch on a phone. It's the first animation I've made that was tailored to watch on a phone. It's vertical format, so I'm actually curious how that's going to look. So I'm curious to hear how that goes. But it's a vertical format. It's very interesting because it was actually made for this Snapchat platform. So it was produced by Snapchat as these little like quick little 3-minute shorts that, like I said, I sort of put together into this like supercut and edited. I adapted it into like what I see as like a short film, which is similar. I did a similar thing in a film that was also at the Florida Film Festival called Golden Age. That was a thing that I actually was funded by Comedy Central as a late night shorts, and then I adapted it and finessed it into again, I think it was about a 30-minute film that was in Florida Film Festival and Sundance and Ottawa and a bunch of places. So yeah, so it's a fun way to like take corporate money to make a short film the way you want to make it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So like turn corporate dollars into like independent vision is kind of an interesting trick you can pull sometimes. So yeah, so we made this. So it is meant for a phone, and like literally, it's really, really interesting to me the way your brain operates differently watching something on a phone versus a like television screen or a movie screen. So like we would literally watch it in the edit bay and then rewatch it again on the phone.
Yeah.
And it was always too slow every single time. And I make fast cartoons. It's like
That's
if you
true.
watch any of the stuff we do, like Super Jail or Jellies or any of these things, they're fast, right? Not even nearly fast enough for the phone. So like every time we'd watch it on the phone and it just felt slow. So it's really, really, it's like your brain is like just, the phone makes your brain into like an ADD monster, right? It's like no matter what you're looking at on your phone, you're ready for the next thing. So it moves very fast. So it's going to be the most fast moving 30-minute cartoon you may have ever seen.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So it's an experiment, and I love that I can still experiment with animation at this stage of our studio. We're now 22 years old, which is pretty exciting. So so that's a little bit, yes, a little bit the format. And then as far as the actors, like, yeah, we just, cast who we thought would do a great job. And Kristen Shaw is just one of my favorite actors. I think she's hilarious in everything she's ever done. And she's also one of the sweetest, nicest people in the industry. So we went right out to her. And then Thomas Middleditch is super funny too. So yeah, essentially we asked them to do it and they did it. So it was an interesting time because it was right in the beginning of the pandemic. So like there was some things that were recorded, like I flew out to LA to record them. And then there's some things that like we literally had to have the two of them go into their closet and record lines on a phone. Because it was like the very, very early days of the pandemic, early last year, where like even the studios hadn't set up. Now they're all set up for these remote records and everything that we're making. We're working on 3 series right now, and all 3 we're doing all remote recordings, and they're set up for that. But back then, I literally had to have Kristen Shaw in her closet. Like it was like we were like, make sure there's a lot of clothes in there.
Yeah, no echo.
The echo, right? And it's like go in a closet with a lot of clothes and get on the floor and record this stuff for us. So it was a very interesting adventure, this cartoon.
Oh, it's absolutely crazy. Yeah, we loved it. And she's so unique in her delivery and her tone that like, as soon as the dialogue started coming out, I knew immediately it was her. And I was like, oh, this is going to be gold because she's going to just nail this. And she really did.
Well, because another thing is like, look, I'm an animation person. I that's my life. But like, if you ask me what you're watching, it's going to be horror. Like all I watch is horror. Like I watch animation, a bit, but like if I have my choice, like, what do you want to do tonight? I want to watch a horror movie. I watch like my dad. I grew up. My dad's like a big sci-fi guy, and I was confused. Like he has a bookshelf like you have that's just only the shittiest sci-fi books. Like he'll just anything related to sci-fi, he's gonna read it. Right? Terrible stuff. I'm that way with horror. Like give me. I don't care if it's like the most low budget, like crappy. I made this in my garage horror movie, all the way to like whatever the big budget, horror, epic that comes out. I want to see horror. I love horror TV. I love horror movies. So I've been dying to do, no pun intended, a horror cartoon for a long time. I got to dip into it with Ugly Americans, but with this, we just dove in, and it was like everything I love about horror, from like horror movie. We have reference to stuff like everything from like, I don't know, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and like German Expressionism, all the way up to like Saw and like Slender Man and serial killers and like just everything disturbing. We just threw it in there and like just took the darkest death. I mean, it's about death, which is why it's been I will say it's been a tricky cartoon to promote during the quarantine. A lot of people we've had enough death.
We're good on death right now.
And to be honest, like, we weren't able to promote it the way we wanted to because, people were sensitive about death right now. But, I just wanted to just dump the darkest things that I'm interested in, like from death to rotting skin to disease to everything. Just dump it in there and be as funny as we could possibly be. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
So, and I
Nailed it.
think to your point with Kristen Shaw, like she has this sweetness. I mean, she's essentially a rotting corpse. She's
Yeah.
and if you watch it closely, there's a lot of dark stuff in there. Like there's things we hint at in there that like, because she's like a teen influencer that died prematurely.
Yeah.
We touch on the fact that she, you know, may have been kidnapped and buried alive. I mean, there's dark stuff in there. And, you know, the fact that Kristen is so sweet, you know what I mean? And she has this brightness, even though she's talking about the darkest stuff, about
Yeah.
eating skin and being murdered, all this stuff, it's always really sweet and funny.
Oh, absolutely.
I know I have to go and I don't want to take anyone's time, but I do also
Sure.
want to say the most important thing about this cartoon for me was David DeGrand. He's the cartoonist that designed the whole thing. And if anyone is interested in these kind of horror cartoons, please check out David DeGrand. He's a really great cartoonist, and he really brought a lot to this cartoon for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah,
and it's
thanks
been
so
a
much.
blast to have you on here. Let me jump over to Steven, who also, I mean, it's like a spoiler because I know a lot about this short, so I won't say anything, and maybe you can just explain to me and these people how this came about, and
Sure.
why you've never made animation before.
I hadn't during the pandemic, you know, here in LA, everything got locked down really, really tight. So for the first couple months, I didn't really have anything going on. So I decided to try to learn animation and just went through a bunch of YouTube tutorials and got into Adobe Character Animator. And then when I actually went to the Florida Film Festival in August to premiere the documentary Surviving SuperCon, during the animated shorts, another animator had talked about how he didn't know anything about animation and he was a terrible artist, which I'm a terrible artist too. I can't draw to save my life. But what he did was do roto animation.
Yeah.
And so I got really inspired by his short, being like, oh, that's a good idea. And so I do a lot of photography. So what I did was I took an actress and did a photo shoot with her instead, and then just took all the frames and traced all the frames and colored the frames. So I spent about 4 months doing the roto animation for this one, which is about 2 minutes, which is 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But literally got inspired from the Florida Film Festival to be able to do it, because we had talked about doing this short in live action for years and just make it really crazy and absurdist. But animated, it was a whole lot easier, and then we could do a lot more crazier things with it. So it was very cool to be able to figure all that out during the lockdown, because I had a lot of spare time, like a lot of people in the industry.
Everybody did something creative during lockdown, and I like cleaned my house. like that's all I did.
Yeah, you were trying to figure out how to produce from home, because I do everything in live action. So
yeah,
for us, it was really interesting to try to figure out something new. So the lockdown has definitely been all focused on animation and comics.
Yeah,
too.
So I appreciate that you told everybody that this was actually conceived of as live action, because I can imagine like the people watching this right now is trying to ability to try to figure out how in the hell this would be a live action movie.
It was a lot of puppets. I think we had talked about doing a lot of puppetry and ridiculous elements, because it's just about a woman giving birth to a shark. So
yeah,
doing it in real life would be pretty ridiculous as well.
Yeah, SAG's really not like against that. I think
not big fans. That was also a lot easier about doing animation too, with all the COVID compliances now, not having to have your actors, on set and things. It was a lot easier to go union for it too.
Yeah,
because they all recorded everything at their houses.
Yeah. Well, let me jump on to Max and Carl with pleasure, which is we've got we actually got a lot of stuff that made it into final selections that didn't make it in, that kind of existed in this very surrealistic landscape. And man, it just really felt like on point after 2020 to like watching surrealism like a lot on the screen. But your film is unique because it's almost two entirely different movies, like kind of wrapped together. This kind of like Lynchian opening, and then it just kind of goes completely off the rails at just about the point that most of my programmers had said, like, we don't know where this is going. It flips the script completely. And then they were all like, holy shit. So let's learn a little bit about With Pleasure.
Well, we could just go, I don't know how we want to talk about this, since Carl and I are both here. I could say one word and then Carl could say a word until kind of sentence form. We could interrupt each other and over again. That's another option. But
that's how Zoom works best, if you just interrupt each other.
Love that. Okay, so just to talk like spark just for the script. it's kind of I was kind of just thinking as an exercise, could I build a story just using idioms, proverbs, famous quotes, and old sayings, and kind of like use these things kind of in a collage way to kind of construct a story. And so then the whole thing kind of came together, even though it doesn't seem like it, in like about like 2.5 months. We wrote it, we cast it, we did it straight off the rail. But we wanted to keep it pretty open-ended and leave a lot up to the audience. We don't want to like give all the answers away. I think pretty much anyone that watches this could probably take something different away from it. But we wanted to use a lot of Texas actors and musicians and comedians. I don't know if you noticed, but that guy Shaky Graves is one of the people in there, and Eller Coltrane from Boyhood. There's a bunch of cool little cameos, but I was like thinking like, oh, like the opening of Mean Streets, it takes like 5-10 minutes to like actually meet everybody, and we're kind of just like living in this bar, just getting like just a little bit of a conversation here and here and here. And I was like, what if there was an entire movie that was just that? Was kind of the idea. Carl?
Yeah, and Max mentioned how fast we did it, which actually really worked out for us because we wrapped like the day before lockdown. We pretty much shot this thing in March, and then it would have been over for us. So then we had our lockdown time just to really kind of focus on post and nail in the edit, which kind of like as you were talking about, Tim, with just how it really subverts whatever you're expecting or not expecting. That was pretty much what we were focusing on, was just really trying to get that roller coaster and kind of make people feel, I would say, dizzy, maybe watching it. And then at the end, just sort of release that tension.
I want to know, this is a question that's almost like an insider question to the degree of it, but I'm wondering if you shot the opening sequence at the Highball in Austin, and never occurred to me how much it really kind of looks like a weird ass burlesque bar inside of it, with the the booths and the way the walls are set up and everything. Maybe not so much if you look down at the floor, but I'm wondering if you can see, if you knew you guys were going to shoot Highball when you conceived the location, because it is the perfect setting for that opening.
Initially, it felt like probably no, just because we don't want people to think it was like too on the nose, or we were doing it for any kind of like political or reason. But like, like David and I met at Fantastic Fest, whatever, 4 years ago and shit. And when we went down to Texas, looked at a lot of bars, and I was a little bit wary, like, we don't want to make this so Fantastic Fest feeling to like the on the nose. But out of all the locations we looked at, it was just easily the most cinematic. And we had a prior relationship, and they were super kind. They gave us like a really great deal, essentially free. So and we transformed it a lot. One thing is like really darkening that space. How much it changes, but it's huge in there, and like it felt pretty limitless, and so I'm glad it worked out. But it wasn't like, what if we do it at the Highball? Then we have it in.
It just definitely felt like one of those things where like this is utilizing this space in like the ideal format for it, because it does have a
shot at the Highball. It's like, for sure.
It does have a very of its own vibe that I don't see in a lot of other Texas bars. So I mean, certainly nothing on 6th, but even the South Lamar stuff is always kind of feels a little more country.
And Ariel Ash, the woman who plays Cherry, the main burlesque person that the film opens up on, she kind of had a say in it as well. She's a friend of mine, and like that was a character that her and I were working on for like a year beforehand, even like before the script was written, just kind of like talking through things. And she was like, okay, like this space, it seems right, So we're kind of like waiting on like her approval. Like she's like a burlesque performer. She performs all over New York, and she's like, this seems legitimate. So we were like, okay. She says it's good. It's good. Yeah.
Well, let's pop over to David and talk about Stuck, because Stuck's a riot. It's this audio in it is just aggressively unpleasant. This is a movie that we had a long and drawn out argument over in terms of actually considering putting it in the competition for the grand jury award. And, you know, there's always battles in programming between programmers who want to do this and programmers that don't want to do this other thing. And when you're battling for competition, you're battling against 800 other movies that are submitted in that exact same category, and Midnight's more contained. And it was just one that the ultimate fight was ended by essentially saying, like, if people would just stop arguing about it after like 14 hours of programming, we promise you we'll play this at midnight. So that's how you made your way to the Midnight's program. But I want to talk about the movie itself and why you wanted to do a comedy about this subject.
Well, it's, I mean, the main idea of a guy hiding himself that way, I've had since, that was actually like a rumor when I was in high school. There was this rumor going around that this, I think he would have been a senior when I was a freshman, that he had actually done this. Like he hid himself in a gym mat so he could like masturbate to like the dance team and they wouldn't know he was there. And I'd always just I was like, wow, that's like the most insane thing I've heard of someone doing. So I've tried to put it in a couple scripts over the years. And then, you know, I was talking to my co-writer, Jonah Baez. He also read this, I think it's a short story by Edogawa Rampo, and it's kind of about a guy who he like sews himself into a chair about in the house of a woman that he's like obsessed with, so that like she'll sit on him and she doesn't know he's in the chair. But we kind of like, it was kind of the story from high school in that, where then we were just talking about and it just, I don't know how we landed on gymnastics, but we're like, oh, that's a perfect delivery mechanism for this. But yeah, it's kind of, I think it's like a movie like this, we kind of wanted to do I don't know, like a bait and switch a little bit, where it's like, it starts off, you kind of think it's going to be a lot more serious, I think.
Yeah, I think his reaction to her, you know, catching him the first time does sets up an entirely different movie than the movie you deliver.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted that with like I didn't want you to, because I feel like the typical route would be like, you know, he actually like maybe does something a lot worse, you know, like, you know, corners one of the girls or something like I feel like that's the route most people would think it would go. So we were kind of hoping just for that, like that shock when you finally see him in the eyeball poking out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I think the subject matter too, it's like, I don't know. It just, I don't think it would have worked if it was serious. Like I don't know. It's just something about, I feel like a lot of movies like that are like focusing on like the horrible, like the pain and like whatever caused from a situation like that. Where I was like, why don't, you know, like what would be, you know, what would anyone that's experienced like that sort of like being preyed upon want to actually happen?
Yeah.
What would be like their kind of like their fantasy? And it was, I mean, I kind of had a feeling we were like on the right track, because we did a sort of a rehearsal day where we had most of the girls come in, because only like about 6 of them were actually gymnasts, and we had them come in, and then the main girl, Tara, she was also our stunt coordinator and kind of like, yeah, and it really worked out. She was actually, we found the location and then we found her working there, and she was like, oh, I'm an actress, and we were like, oh my god, okay, great. And but she was kind of helping us gauge everybody, and I remember most of the girls didn't even know what the movie was about. And so we had to, like, after a while, like after like the 4th or 5th girl came up to me and like, what is this? And like, I was like, oh shit, okay. So I had everyone like kind of sit down, and I just explained the movie to them, and just seeing like all their reactions, and they all got really like excited about it. And they're like, oh, yeah. And then they all just started like talking and like telling stories of like different creep experiences they've had, and just seeing like how hyped they all got. I was like, okay, I think we're on to something that'll be okay.
Yeah, we had 3 of our female programmers had watched this short, and I'm not here to speak for them, but a lot of their notes were very much about the fact that these are all programmers that are fans of The Nightingale, and they're fans of revenge. They're fans of a lot of movies that have to have the characters go through horrifying experiences to then get exact the revenge, and this felt a little bit more to that. A lot of them had noted kind of a catharsis about the fact that they were watching a movie that was solely about just like getting this guy like who's doing this one thing before he's ever actually kind of like, other than invading space, has essentially they get it. It's like the like the kind of fuck you moment that they get to all have to like the guy on the street that's being an asshole kind of thing.
So, totally,
really
like kind of getting to shut it down before it really starts. And I think I don't know.
Awesome. Well, no, we love it. It's a riot. Well, we watched it several times as well, because like so
Awesome.
went through 2 teams. But like at this point, I'd love to open up next like 10 minutes or so, let you guys ask each other some questions. Oh, I didn't do Sophie and Dan. Oh, okay. Woo, this thing's going on. I'm so sorry. I just like blanked out. It's hard to see this screen. Hey, you guys are just like, we didn't make a movie. So Thing That Ate the Birds is this is so well cast and gorgeously shot, like really like jaw-droppingly cinematic. So I'm curious about the history of the production, but I'm also curious about your 2 leads and the amount of this movie that's essentially kind of unspoken.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we just background-wise, we kind of wrote it when Brexit was happening in the UK. So we just had this kind of sense of the world's or Britain at the time, now the world, it's just imploding and everyone was losing their heads. So we kind of used that as a way to kind of give ourselves a backbone. And we lived in Yorkshire.
And the place where we shot, the Yorkshire Dales, is where I grew up. And so the location, kind of childhood stomping grounds for me. And I think the thing is, it very much came from this, because we have children, as you can see.
Yes. I've seen everything on Zoom at this point.
Luckily, they're dressed today.
Indeed. And whilst all of this, there was a lot of blaming going on in Britain at the time during Brexit, and it just felt kind of like, what kind of world is our children going to grow up into people weren't thinking, people were losing their heads, and these kind of blaming actions and kind of accusations were being placed on certain sections of our society.
So that's just where the emotion of the project kind of came from, I think, isn't it? And we chuck a few bits in there, but with the characters, the actors are great. Like Owen, who plays Abel, was at a script read that the BFI put on for us, and we saw him and we were like, that guy's really good, and we hadn't even auditioned him. It was a free audition and we were like, great, he's awesome. And he's such a nice, underplayed, subtle kind of actor.
And Grace, Rebecca Palmer, actually, I went on a kind of holistic writing weekend with a group of female filmmakers, and no writing got done, but I met this amazing woman who took on the Grace character, and she was absolutely, well, both of them, everybody was amazing to work with, but she really did kind of just take on what we'd written, and it was such a pleasure because she knew that character better than we did when we were writing it.
I think we were just trying to sow the seeds in the script, and it's like a challenge, isn't it? How much information do you need to engage in the drama that's happening on screen, I suppose?
No, I think that's one of the things that the film does really well, is that it doesn't give you every single answer. It doesn't need to. And that just shows an incredible control over the movie that you're making. So, like, confidence more.
Nice. Good. Nice.
But we do. I mean, we're massive horror fans,
Yeah.
and similar. Yeah, we, we'll sit down on an evening time, and it's like, what do we watch?
Yeah.
Of course, it's horror.
I mean, that's so. Raise your hand if that's not all you do is watch horror movies when you're not doing.
No.
Like that's actually like, or we're always like, what do you watch when you go home? Are you watching like some Fassbender or some Tarkovsky? And it's like, no, I've seen all of those movies already. Like, what's the shittiest horror movie that just hit like Netflix? Like, I totally watch that movie all the time. So like,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Half that movie all the time.
So I just watched one just like the other week. After this is over, I'll tell everybody all about it. I'll just say, if you haven't seen Doom Asylum from 1989, run, don't walk. Like, it's terrible. So let me open that up then, kind of let everybody have at this. Feel free to ask each other anything you want to know about your own projects. I would love to hear from you guys. I think you guys have better questions than I do all the time. So don't be shy, jump in.
One thing I was just thinking is I was really hoping, what's it, Michael Portnoy?
So Michael was supposed to be on the call. So did everybody watch
that was
Progressive Touch?
Yeah, that was something. That was crazy. I wanted to hear more about that.
All I can tell you about it is that it was created for a museum.
Oh, really?
So, and that all the people in it are all actual dancers, and they're all couples.
Oh, wow.
They're all already in relationships together. And then I would love to ask him lots of questions too. He is the reason this entire program contains an 18 and over only live screening warning on it. But yeah.
Sure.
So I can't speak for Michael except that I made like 9 programmers watch this, and I made 7 of them were women programmers. So I asked them to please watch this because I didn't have a good enough perspective on like how just completely uncomfortable this might make an audience. And I'm fine with making an audience insanely uncomfortable, but I was just like, I literally just called up my most trusted female programmers and said, all of you are getting this in your Film Freeway account tonight. Please text.
How that is for you, Tim, like, obviously there's so much senseless violence and domestic terrorism and school shooters and just horrible things happening all the time and hate crimes. Like, when you're putting together, like a Midnight Block, where I'm sure there's like some great films, but you're thinking like, even for us, like we have a trailer, and there's like a part where this horrible character, even though he doesn't commit senseless violence on women, not to spoil alert if anyone saw it, but kind of curse, it goes back on him. But in our trailer, he's like, get down, slut, and he has this gun. And we were about to post the trailer, and I was like, I don't think we can post this right now. There was like this might trigger people. So like, how does that work? Where exactly?
Oh man, you're not supposed to interview me during the Q&A.
I was curious. Like, I'm wondering, like, are people going to like, just how that works with the genre stuff? Yeah.
I would have started by saying we have the majority of my programmers are women, and many of my programmers across both boards identify LGBTQ or BIPOC. So we're not willing, there's nothing we're not willing to show. Like we don't censor ourselves in terms of what we program, but we do program, especially when we place a block together, we're very, very sensitive to, things that are going on. We also try it as much as possible not to say that there's a trigger warning for a movie unless the filmmaker personally requests it, but we also don't try to blindside people. So we do a lot of pre-stuff where we talk to people that are coming to the festival, and we try to make the descriptors give you a pretty decent idea of what you're going to watch without absolutely setting an expectation before someone watches your film. But it's tough. I would say it's tough to program and to be sensitive about it, because we're all very, very sensitive about it. And the last thing we want to do is blindside somebody with something, especially sexual trauma. And there's a lot of that in competition this year. There's one in every one of the 4 programs. And to me, that's definitely one of those issues where, and programs will bring their own experiences into that and talk to me about it. We have a lot of conversation about it.
Totally.
So, and without having to be like, we're not going to play this because this happens.
And that's not to discredit filmmakers. I'm sure everyone, like, in the writing process, and especially it's 2021, everyone's thinking like, okay, like, you know, how are people going to react? Because shock value is different now, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to have, doing it for the sake of doing it has no value to me anymore. Like, you have to have a reason behind it. Like, if anybody's ever seen a Serbian film, like, to me, that's just like complete crap.
Yeah.
Because it's just shock value with no context. For shock value is just every bullshit thing you can throw on screen at once. Hey, filmmakers of Serbian film, we're checking in our Q&A right now. But like, that to me doesn't fly anymore.
No, totally. I mean, I even know like Carl and David and I, even like there'll be, you know, social commentary in it. But like, even with that, sometimes people are saying, okay, who's the perspective? Who's the person talking about this? Do they have a right to talk about it? So I was just curious, as programmers, how's that work?
Yeah, that's how it works for programmers. I mean, I'm not here to tell anybody what not to make, but at the end of the day, we decide what we play, and we live and die like that. So like, make anything you want to make, by all means. There's nothing out there censoring you. I mean, don't make child pornography, you know, like, or snuff films, but like, you know, make whatever you want to make, and then it's up to you to figure out how to get anybody to go see it. But that's also, and it's up to us to decide if we want to give you a platform to do that. So, anybody else got questions that are not for me? So, well, what's everybody working on? We'll wrap it up with just a kind of quick question of what anybody else is working on right now. And I'll let just, you know, kind of quickly, we'll go through the group again. So David, why don't you start with that one?
I mean, haven't really shot anything, just been writing a lot. You know?
And that's what good, you know, being stuck around is kind of good for that. So
yeah, I got a lot of writing done, so that's, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Max, Carl?
Carl and I during the past like 6 months, we have got a couple projects going. We have a feature that's like loosely based off of this short, really loosely, and really not only character that's the same as that Cherry character.
Okay.
And so we got that option this past week, which is exciting. And I think we're looking at the end of the year to shoot it, which will be cool. And that'll be a feature.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see you in feature territory.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Sophie, Dan?
Yeah, we are working on a feature with the BFI, which
it's really early stages.
It's really early stages, but it's intrinsically it's intrinsically linked to the thing that ate the birds, but it's not. It's not the thing that ate the birds.
Can you hear that?
You're fine. Like,
those chains didn't work, Sophie.
I'm telling you, after we stop recording, I'll tell you everything I've ever seen on a Zoom call. So, Steven, what about you, man? You're never not working, really. So,
I've been focusing a lot on a lot of different projects because of, you know, being stuck at home. But I wrote a video game for Sony that'll come out in October, or November, which was really cool because that was the first experience of that. And just doing a lot of shopping, did a lot of writing, and now we're shopping 5 new animated series, and just finished a new comic book that'll come out later this year, and then finalizing legal on the documentary, so that'll come out later this year too, the feature length doc.
Awesome.
So yeah, trying to stay busy.
We're excited to keep an eye out for that. Obviously, let everybody know in Surviving SuperCon, which was our opening night film at the Florida Film Festival last year, makes its
very
debut. So, and then Claire, what about you? What's going on?
I just wanted to say quickly, I watched all these shorts, and I felt very happy to be part of my silly little Willie making its way amongst this crowd of short films, because classically at film festivals, when I've gone to see short selections, I'm always like, oh, when are these finishing? And this was an exciting crowd to get through. So,
thank you.
It's nice to be part of it. I'm working on a second feature script, and it's like very different than this short. It's like based off a true life story in 1915, and it's like a motorcycle chick movie.
Oh, I love it.
And it's like a period piece and a sort of like dramedy, and that's just being sent around at the moment. So hopefully we'll be shooting that. I mean, I just can't wait to get back on set, even though I love writing, but I'm ready to be back in the hustle bustle.
I'm sure all of us miss actual human beings.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for taking time out of your weekend. to join us for this Q&A, and remind the audience that all of these films are available on the virtual platform for the entire duration of the festival. After it's over, you get a chance to vote for your favorite for the best midnight short. And I encourage you to, recommend these movies to your friends and tell them what stuff you saw that was fantastic, and continue to support these filmmakers who are just doing absolutely incredible work. So thank you guys again so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Tim.